Because of course he was swarthy.
Because
right?
he was swarthy. Dusty, swarthy.
Exactly. This is what you get. So you can see why I was interested in this story, right? Because
a couple of dusty, swarthy babes talking about murder.
This is a ManeHustle Media podcast.
Virtual Rhiality Studios. A new realm of creativity.
Konnichiwa, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Matcha, Masala, and Murder.
We're back, baby!
We're back. Blended Bessies spilling the tea. We are back for our first episode of our second season. Pew, pew, pew,
Season
pew. 2. We really decided on a fly, like, let's just make seasons. So now we are season 2.
We're doing it now. We've committed.
Yeah. And we're just a couple of mixed mates musing over matcha, masala, and again, murder. I am one of your co-hosts, your Sir Auntie, Sharmane Fury. And my co-host.
I am Rhia Maya Kaur.
And so we are back. We haven't had a break yet. We're gonna have a break, but this is the start of our second season. So you haven't seen us for a couple weeks, but we just saw each other.
We're always squirreling away in the background, you know.
I have a couple of things before you're telling us a story. We have very significant, or I don't know, very significant. We have a reason why we're telling the story that we're telling today. But before we get into that, I have a recommendation or a suggestion.
Ooh.
And I have a weird little thing that I think I'm going to do. So you and I have been talking about tea for ages. It's what brought us to the dance also, like our little tea focused murder show and everything. And I remember, and last time when we were recording, I mentioned that like it has always been kind of a dream for me to have like a proper little tea garden so I could start, making my own teas. And I want bees eventually and stuff like that, so I can have my own honey and all that kind of stuff. So this is actually something that I've been thinking about for ages. And now with my life kind of being up in the air, it's like I don't know what my future looks like. I started to look to see if there was some way to get certified or learn how to be a better tea ingester.
Oh.
I didn't know what to call it. I was like, how do you get better at tea?
Of
so
course,
I go to the
in dear old England, we start early. We start them young when they're toddlers. They learn to appreciate it.
Besides like the tea that I've always kind of had because my nan and stuff like that. And then on my Japanese side, I have my versions of that. But I was like, I would like to know tea on a level of some of the people that I follow on Instagram, some of the people that like home blenders and things like that or whatever. I was like, how do you do that? Like, what kind of job? How do you get that gig? So I discovered that there was all these classes and all these certifications around the world to become a tea sommelier.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that was the thing. I didn't know that's what it was called. I didn't know that was the thing.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess. That's interesting. Okay.
Because I'm very focused. Like I like my black teas and I like my green teas. And more specifically, I like my Japanese green tea because the other Asian green tea I've been exposed to had elements in it that I didn't appreciate or understand or know because it wasn't part of my palate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so not to say that I dismissed it, but I'm just like, I'll save it for my own green tea type of thing, right? And then with the black teas, the way that I'm experimental is if I allow it to have a fruit blend or a flower blend or something like that with it, that's like the way. But I'm like, I would really like to actually kind of have a more sophisticated tea palette because I've been drinking a lot more different teas over the last 2 years. And every time I try something new, I'm just like, I've been sitting on like, I've been missing out on all of this stuff, right? So I
Who
looked
has
up
been
and
gatekeeping lapsang from me?
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, wait, you can put this in a tea. And so I started looking at these courses, and some of them are all over the world. Some of them you can do online and then like work and travel to a place or whatever. But so there's like all these tea master courses, tea sommelier courses, tea blender courses, all kinds of stuff, like how to have a tea business stuff. And the more I'm digging into them, I'm like, I think I want to do that. Like, I think I want to do all of it.
Yeah.
But I think I want to start with becoming a tea sommelier so that I can develop a more sophisticated tea palette.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're not crazy expensive given what they are. Like, it's not that you could just turn around and drop $2,000 on a thing or whatever that easily or whatever. But in the grand scheme of like how long the courses are and what you're gaining, this like lifelong education and stuff like that, they're actually not too expensive. So depending on how things go, once I get back to the States and everything like that, I've narrowed it down to about 3 different companies that I'm checking out. I think I'm gonna become a tea sommelier.
Okay, I have thoughts. Number one, I think that here's my honest feedback. Number one, I love this for you. I love it.
Thank you.
And number two, I love this for us because then further down the line, we'll be able to say, and let's go over to Sharmane for a professional opinion.
Exactly, right? I'm imagining like
I'm getting notes of children running through a heather field and birds on a shiny day.
Like your pleb palate is picking up caramel, but I am picking up the essence of children and
exactly. That's right.
Children's youth and playfulness and shit like that. Yeah.
Not children tea. That's a whole other different show.
That's a whole different thing. That is when we go into our season in which we talk about like old ladies in houses in the woods.
Oh, it's amazing. This is so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I am very stuck in my ways. I know what I like. I like what I know. I stick to my cultural tea, and I don't stray very far because I think because like tea is like something which sustains you over here. Like, it's just
it's such a big embedded part of the culture
of your day. Yeah, that you don't I don't really stray. I know a lot of people enjoy fruit teas and stuff. To me, that's just not for me. Obviously you have to worry about the water quality and stuff, and especially here in London we have really like hard water with a lot of lime scale in it, so you have to then like filter your water and all that kind of stuff before you get to good. And also I just think fruit teas for me, they smell really amazing of the fruit or the flavor or the plant or whatever, but when you drink it, it's like I'm not really getting the taste. You just get a lot of the smell.
I think that has to do with the quality of it, though.
Okay, but you see, also, I'm not a professional. I haven't been trained, right? So I don't know.
Because I have had, because I'm like you, like fruit teas were never my thing. And every now and then I would get one and I'd be like, it's not bad. Like I get it. It smells better than it tastes or whatever. But then I've been able to find different companies here and there that have had, like, so the one that I would kind of do was like a peach black tea. And I would try it whenever. And most of the time I was disappointed. But there's this one there's this one company in America called Black and Bold, which is 2 Black men who own it. And for every package of tea you buy, 5% of the proceeds goes to educating Black male youth in the United States to
brilliant.
Get them off the street programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it had like a double thing for me. I was like, I'm not really into this fruit tea, but I'll buy it to support the cause. And then I found the peach tea, and the peach tea tastes like it smells.
Yeah. So actually, when I've been in the States, I have had peach tea because you tend to get iced tea more often like available. And so, so when I discovered peach iced tea, for me, I was like, oh, this is good. I mean, it's not in my head. I'm like, it's not tea. It's amazing, but it's not tea. So I just had to kind of flip the switch. So I'll go in.
That's fair too. Yeah, because for Americans, when you say tea, they picture iced tea.
Yeah.
For pretty much anybody else on the planet, when you say tea, you picture hot tea. But yeah, like I have had these little bursts of having a tea that has something that I wouldn't normally go for that I've actually turned out to really enjoy and stuff. And so I guess in this, like, I feel like I would have done this even if my life hadn't changed, and, and maybe not even focus on it as like a potential job, because like literally you could get a job doing this, like hosting tea tastings or being the buyer for a hotel's global tea or something like that. Like there's like jobs that people can have.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you know, in my fantasy brain, I've always ended my life owning a little tea shop, you know, like a little tea cafe type of thing or whatever. And now that we're into the whole tea/true crime thing, I was thinking how cute would it be to have like a true crime themed tea shop.
So good.
You know,
We solve
and I was
crime
like,
in the back.
solve
we serve
crime in
tea
the back,
front.
tea in the front. Like, and I was thinking, like, it's been, like the idea really got kind of more crystallized during your Aqua Tofana episode, because I was thinking about like them having the apothecary shop or whatever, and like in the front you just have regular ass medicine, but in the back you're killing husbands, right? And like it'd be a cute, you know, little thing for a theme or whatever. I don't know if I would ever go that far into it, but even just on a personal note, if I never turn it into like a business type of thing, I do want to learn to do this, because I think it'd just be like a weird thing that I could like learn and know how to do. And since I already drink
parties and stuff,
right, just like all of a sudden I just have all these teas lined up, and I'll just like smell this, drink that, you know,
swish it around, really get the flavor,
you know, like all the stuff. So to see if I was even remotely into the idea, I took a free 45-minute like intro class on like Skillshare, like the website Skillshare for online classes. And it was like called like From Leaf to Cup. And it was just like a little history about tea, a breakdown of the different types and where they come from and all that kind of stuff. And then like how you brew them and how you make them and how you use stuff like that. Yeah. So going through that little course, I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do this. So
this is good.
In the next couple months, as I get settled back in the States and stuff like that, I will either be taking, I'll definitely be taking one that I could do online and stuff like that. But there's differences whether or not I take one of the ones that have a travel somewhere component.
Yeah,
which
you
could
go
take
to Japan. That would be cool.
You can go to Japan, yeah, because there is a Japanese one. The Japanese one I've looked at is predominantly green tea, obviously, very specific to Japanese green tea. There's also one that that takes you to Ethiopia, because a lot of the black teas are grown either throughout Asia or in Ethiopia.
That's true. Yeah.
And then there's some that take you to India, and then there's some that take you down to South America even further and stuff like that too. So my question now is just like, what do I ultimately like? Where would I want to travel / learn about the tea? You know, pick my expertise of whatever that ends up being. Yeah. And obviously Japan is high on the list because I'm Japanese and I haven't been there yet. That being said, I do drink more black tea than green tea. So does it make sense for me to go to India instead, or, you know, or Ethiopia, or, you know,
the tea world is your oyster.
Yeah. Right. So that was a little thing that I finally decide, like, so this has actually been something I've been looking into for a while, but I finally I'm going to do this.
This is so good. And I think it's really great to have a focus and have, like, you know, have your eye on that in the future is really nice thing to have something to look forward to and be planning. And keep us posted. I'm so excited. Yeah, we're going pro.
Yeah, like seriously, like now then I can offer up, like, it's not just a murder podcast. I'm a tea expert.
I won't be upping my skill level in any area at the moment. You'll just be getting regular on me and my opinions.
Like, I already walk around with tea snobbery. I should actually have something to back it up. And so maybe that. So yeah, that was my one little like weird thing that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna share. Excellent. But now that leads me into I stumbled on it last night. I have seen this white woman's face on my Netflix screen for ages, but I never clicked on it. And even though I watch a lot of true crime documentaries, and I think it was just because it was like the blonde, blue-eyed missing or murdered victim is a dime a dozen in true crime. So it's kind of like you had to pick your poison type of thing. And last night I was just feeling very like, okay, I've seen that one. I've seen that one. I've seen that one. I've seen that one. And so I was like, all right, fine. I'll click on this one. And I'm gonna suggest it in my little Sharmane Suggests, only because for you and I and the kind of conversations we have about these crimes and cultural context and stuff like that, there was something that jumped out at me that bothered me so much that has to do with like how Westerners exist in non-Western spaces, which has so little to do with the crime itself. But the documentary that I wanted to suggest to everybody to watch is the story of Lucy Blackman, who, when I pressed the button, I had not read the description. All I saw was the picture. I literally had nothing going, only to discover that it's a British woman who was living and working in Japan, and ended up going missing, and then later discovered murdered. And the documentary, this has happened in the 2000s, early 2000s, and the documentary follows kind of like the way Japan was handling it, and the way her father was handling it, having flown to Japan to try to find his daughter. And it's so weird to get through this documentary because I had so little empathy for the father, even as I'm thinking of him being a father that is worried and concerned about his missing daughter.
Yeah.
And so it sparked this thing of like, I need to talk about this on this show because this is an element of this like orientalization and otherness and things like that happens, and how like British and Americans, you know, how they travel and exist in spaces that are not made for them, and how they make room for themselves in those spaces. And so the
you mean shoving themselves in and going,
just shoehorning all the way through, right?
Exactly.
And so like the basic story is that this young British woman, Lucy Blackman, who was around 21 at the time, was an air stewardess originally, but then ended up becoming what is called a hostess in Japan, which for Westerners, there's no version of this job.
Yeah.
This job does not exist in at least in the US, but I'm assuming in other parts of the Western world. And what it is basically like nightclubs, gentlemen clubs type of thing, where women go to drink and have conversations with men or whatever, and technically aren't necessarily supposed to develop sexual relationships unless that's something they do out on their own. But literally like the restaurants or the clubs pay the women to keep the men entertained. And the more the men are buying drinks and things like that, the more cut that the women get. And it's sort of just like a modern version of what a geisha was, you know, or I mean, still is, but in a more modern update, you know, they can be women from literally all over the world. And for someone in the Japanese culture who's like an Anglophile or, you know, Francophile or something like that, who has this like obsession with Western white women and such, it would be like a cool thing for them to do, to go to these clubs and be entertained and have conversations with these women. And so I don't know if she was extending her visa because that wasn't clear, but evidently this is a way that women get kind of stuck in Japan to a degree, is that they blow their visa and they end up working at these clubs. And so if bad things happen to them or they're forced into sex work or something like that, there's not a whole lot of recourse for these women to protect them. And I think that's what we find Lucy ends up in, is she becomes a hostess, and there's this particular guy who evidently had been assaulting women in these clubs for ages. And later in the course of looking for Lucy, they discover he actually was responsible for the death of at least one other woman 8 years prior, which helped like zero it in on who the killer was, and ultimately finding Lucy's body about like 9 months after she goes missing. And so the father comes to Japan, and he immediately just starts doing what I like, if I'm trying to extend the empathy, doing what any parent of a missing child would be trying to do. Keep her name in the press, make sure people are looking for her, you know, all this kind of stuff. Don't be quiet.
Absolutely. Put a little bit of pressure on the police to just say, hey, look, she's got a family. We want her found. You know, don't forget.
But what ends up happening is he exerts this like British global citizen method of just like, rather than letting the Japanese police do what they do, assuming they were incompetent. Now, I can't say one way or the other. I will say that, you know, Japanese being a very, still having the mentality of a closed society, aren't going to pay as much attention to a Westerner or a foreigner going missing in their country or whatever like that. But what you don't do in Japanese culture is embarrass people. And that is essentially what he was doing, is he was using the media to embarrass the police, thinking he was going to force them into being better investigators. And that may or may not have worked against him.
Yeah. And then he like
for G7
decided to speak out about this.
Yeah.
Well, and it was like, wait, what? Like it was such a huge thing. And so yeah, I've watched this program too. Like we happened to watch it not that long ago, because we were like, oh fuck, I remember, you know when you read the little thing, I was like, that name rings a bell, why? And then it wasn't until it was like, yeah, god, do you remember this case? So it is so interesting, because the biggest thing for me, and I think I said to you, is this, like, this guy is from a certain part of society. You know, he's that, you know, they're a well-to-do, wealthy family who've got access to some funds, and you know, he certainly thinks a lot of himself, and is this, you know, Englishman who's gone over there to sort out the foreigners. And but the interesting contrast for me was because if you consider how this story might play out in reverse, like an immigrant to our country, like the US or to the UK or something, if they came over here, maybe they broke their visa conditions or something, or they were working in some kind of, and I know it isn't sex work unless you're doing it illegal outside of, but like if they're doing some kind of semi-adjacent job that is lower down you know, in society, for example, and they're foreign, and it's maybe cash in hand and all these kind of things, and maybe it's a bit, you know, on the seedy side of town or something. Imagine how that would be written about in our presses or on our news if that person goes missing. And then that person, this is exactly the kind of thing we talk about. That person would not be afforded sympathy. That person wouldn't be treated as a super important victim to go, you know, it's just like, oh, well, if he's killing a bunch of prostitutes, you know, like the Rippers, then it's not that big a deal, right? Whereas it was so interesting to me that this guy went over there and was like, how dare you not be searching for my beautiful blonde
this is a British
English
woman.
daughter. And it's like, but to consider how she's perceived in their society. And I'm not saying that the Japanese police were doing this on purpose and going, oh, fuck off, whatever. But you didn't even consider that that's how, you know, that she might be viewed in a different way because you're in their land. Yeah.
Or that, like, the reason why the police in this regard are not telling you all the details is because you're going onto the media all the time, and they don't want you to leak shit that could potentially make the thing more difficult, which I understand, you know, to a degree, even in the US with cases and stuff like that. Like, you feel like the family should know things, but at the same time, you understand why the police keep a certain amount to themselves, because one, the guilty party might be in the family, or two, like the family might be leaking information that is
and you want to get a jump on
critical.
the criminal that you're going to try and arrest, right? You don't want to give them everything so they know how to evade you.
And a lot of times that is why some people are able to evade, because the news is getting such information so quickly and stuff like that.
Or because it just totally biases the whole case. If you do find them and you do arrest them and you do put them on trial, then the jury can be so biased by the media. You know, we were talking last week about at the end of last season about Kevin Peterson, right? Peterson?
Scott Peterson.
Scott Peterson, sorry, that's the other one. Scott Peterson, too many Petersons. And you know, that there was a distinct air of like bias because of the amount of media reporting that was done about him. And instantly all these conclusions were jumped to, which may or may not actually have meant that he was the murderer. You know, how do you not even think and stop for a minute to think, I don't know how this culture is, so I'm going to find out.
And that kept like really frustrating me. And, you know, again, I'm a Japanese person, so I'm seeing, you know, I mean, I'm British and Japanese, like I have both of those influences. And so I'm seeing, like, I fully and honestly, I can replace the father with my great uncle, who I called Papa, because he was like a grandfather figure to me, a man that I loved my whole life and everything like that. But then when I became an adult, I realized he was just like this raging British racist, you know, and I didn't realize it as a child, but you know, as an adult, it became really clear.
We've all got one of those uncles.
You know what I'm saying? Like the racist stories he told me as an adult, I was just like, I have to get the fuck out of here. Like I was on a visit and I was like, I need to change my flight. I need to get back home. I never want to talk to this man again. And I really didn't talk to him again much after, like a couple little letters here and there. And then once he died, I was like, you know, sorry for your loss kind of a thing, but I moved on with it. But I could place my uncle, my Papa, I can place him in that man's same position of just like, he's hanging posters on poles, and the police officer, the street monitor, police comes up and is like, you can't do this. And then he just puts his hands out like, cuff me, because I'm not going to take them down. And then the police officer just looks at the camera and looks at him and just walks away, because again, that's not, we don't want to be caught on camera being, wild and stuff like that. Like, it's just like embarrassing. Japanese is not how you move well in that society.
But why would you not, because if that's where the crime has happened and that's where she is and that's the system you need to work within, then and you've got all this money, right? Hire some fucker to be your liaison, right? To teach you about the culture, to help you understand how not to make a faux pas or piss anybody off, or, to move within the system so that you can get stuff done. Because ultimately that's the goal you want to achieve. Why do you think going in and bulldozing with your own standards and expectations, how do you think that that's greasing the wheels of justice?
Right. Because what if it didn't work? Like, what if being that bulldozer was exactly the reason why you couldn't find your daughter in the end, right? But you don't know, because you've already decided these are lesser, of lesser intelligence, of lesser skills, of lesser whatever others. And I'm the one who's at the center of the universe here. And the way he behaved throughout that documentary, I like, again, I found him so unsympathetic.
Yes, me too.
I wasn't even moved at all by the heaviness of how Lucy actually died and what she actually went through. And had the father's story been taken out of that, and Lucy been more of the focus and center of that documentary, because that was another complaint I had. The documentary is literally about a woman who went missing, and then eventually we discover she's murdered. She is the smallest component of a documentary named for her, right? So
it's the caucasity of her dad, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. That's what it's about. Like, it's real, like, it should be called like a father's, search or whatever, or something like that, because you're so focused on him, and she's not humanized at all. Enough for me in the documentary for even, like, as a person, a femme-bodied person who understands risk and things like that or whatever, when I see stories about women that are murdered or go missing, and ones that may or may not have been forced into some sort of sex work of some sort, my empathy is going to shoot through the roof usually. But because she was such a minimal part of her own documentary, I feel like I don't know her enough. And not that means that she doesn't deserve my empathy. It's like, she literally...
But it was really hard to connect with her in the story.
You couldn't connect with her. And you want to in these cases, like, because for someone, the problem that I find with a lot of true crime, which is why I tend not to look at documentaries that predominantly focus on white women, is that they, one, they're not human in their own story, but victimology is not nearly as focused on in true crime, at least in Western true crime, than the elevation or the celebrification of the murderers themselves. And so one thing that was interesting in this documentary, where they fail on focusing on the father versus the murder victim, they succeed in making the murderer unknowable. Like,
so that's a really interesting point. You're right.
Like, you kind of, you see him from the back, you kind of see, plus his mugshots and everything like that, he was very uncooperative, they kept saying. And so, like, he closed his eyes, he made sure you couldn't see his face properly and stuff like that. But they don't, he goes by a few different names in the world when he was doing all the stuff that he was doing. And so I don't know that they necessarily, like, the name that they end up giving him, Ibarra, I don't know if that's like literally his legal name or like the name he was using at the time or whatever. But you don't feel like you know him much at all, except that he is a wealthy real estate magnate, and he just has this predilection towards doing what he was doing to these women. He had an MO, and he was doing that. And then why we do believe, we know that he killed at least 2 people. Who knows if there's been more, but at least there's several people that things have happened to them or whatever. But they managed to minimize him in such a way of just like, he's not going to be a celebrity for what he did, in the way that like a Ted Bundy or something like that becomes
Yeah.
a celebrity in their own right. And so
Yeah.
like that was the one thing I think they did really well.
Yeah, that's something I think we need to improve on a lot, definitely. I mean, and I realize the irony of that, given the show that we have, where we talk a lot about the people who do the murder.
Well, in some cases, it's hard to find out about the victim, and I think that is one of the things that I'm learning more and more. Like I've been listening to true crime stuff forever. I've been watching these things, but the more that I get into it, I'm like, yeah, shit, I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Even thinking about last time when I was talking about Tilly Kilmick and her multiple Josephs, her husbands that are all named Josephs. Like I couldn't distinguish between a Joseph, right? Like I don't know anything about these men. And while it is kind of, I'm going to use fun and quotation fingers, like to talk about like why the people are the way they, I guess I have the mutual interest. So I want to understand the mind behind the murderer, but I also want to understand or learn more about the actual victims and have more of a reason to care that isn't naturally triggered by most people. Like most people's empathy needs something relatable to be triggered by, which is wild to me. But even experiencing what I experienced watching that, I was like, I got all the way through it and I was like, it took me the whole thing. And I'm like, who's Lucy?
Yeah.
And I feel bad about that because I would want to care.
Yeah.
And in the way that I do, like naturally, like I care that this woman suffered and died.
And she got a whole documentary made about her. How many of the women who are dying are not getting a whole documentary? And what is the reason why they're not getting a documentary? Because they don't look like her.
And they don't look like, and like, what's worse, that you have your whole documentary
and it's not even about you. Yeah. Oh God.
Or that you're never given, like she's given a face with no voice. And a lot of these people, I guess don't have either. But so I'm suggesting it, I guess, in terms of just like, I watch the shit, you can watch the shit, but here's the shit to be worried about when ingesting true crime documentaries.
I think it's a good one to watch from that point of view to, if you're going to watch things to try and analyze different takes and different documentary styles and different ways that stories are told, because we like to tell stories in a slightly different way around here. So I think it's very relevant to our audience.
And I've been watching back some of the documentaries that I've watched before because my understanding of what to be looking for has changed, even though we've only completed 10 episodes so far.
One season.
One whole season of Matcha, Masala, and Maîr. But I'm finding like the things that you and I are accidentally talking about because of whatever the crimes trigger. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. And so then I go back and watch, the Yorkshire Ripper story, and I'm just like, the things I nailed are still true and holding. These women weren't sex workers, and yet they were all treated and reduced down to sex workers and stuff like that. And I mean, some of them were, but very few in comparison to the bulk of the number, right? Things like that. And the Savile one as well, the same thing of just like so many people knew. And yet it slipped through the cracks. And then R. Kelly situation, like these types of things or whatever. What I'm picking up on now is altered a little bit by the kinds of conversations that you and I are having. And I'm like, I need to go back and I need to see if I understand the stories in the way that I used to.
Well, that's an interesting point. And if you too have found yourself looking at true crime differently, then, let us know. Drop us a line.
And I don't know what education I need to focus on to get better at that, but like,
this is the education.
It could just be you and I continue to have these conversations. But yeah, I was like, the way that, because I wonder, had I watched that even 2 years ago, would I have felt the way that I felt now? I think the father still would have triggered me because he's just such a British white man in a yellow country. Like you could tell that's how he was behaving. So yeah. That's my Sharmane Suggests.
Thank you so much. I like that. Yeah, very good.
Do you have a little mug chat?
Yes, I haven't got a little mug chat. I've got a big large mug chat.
Okay.
I haven't even lifted up my mug.
No, you have not.
This segment because I was waiting for the big reveal.
I'll whip it out.
I'm leaning too hard into this. So this is a British institution that I'm about to reveal to the world. This is how big this mug is, right?
Oh, I love it.
This is my hyperscale, right? This mug I'm
It
gonna
like
turn
blocks
around.
your head.
Right, yeah. So this mug is I can't even
Sport.
do it because it is full of tea. Sportsdirect.com. Right, we're not
Okay.
sponsored by Sports Direct. This is not an advert for them.
But if they
This-
want to sponsor us,
This mug, every household in Britain, I guarantee, will have had one of these mugs in their house, even if they've then like either grown a cactus in it or thrown it away. Right?
okay, fair.
They used, if you made an order online, they used to just send you this shit for free with your order if you spent over a certain amount. So people just
Okay.
like have them, and so this is an online sports store where you could buy, trainers on sale or whatever.
Okay.
So like if you wanted things like that would be more expensive in the shops, you could go online and get it. And like, for example, if you've got kids and they constantly have their feet are growing, you need to buy new shoes all the time or
Right.
football boots or whatever. So you've probably shopped at this store is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And you probably have received at some point, every student household for sure has got several of these. This holds a pint of tea. Full pint.
I love
tea.
it. And
So,
it looks like it would be too big to sit on my cup warmer.
yes, I think
and
it probably
actually
would
be warm. That
yes,
is
it is
so
enormous.
funny.
I make this tea. So this is quite often my weekend morning cup of tea.
Okay.
2 tea bags in this bad boy.
Nice.
To brew the perfect cup of tea. And quite often I'm very lucky because Alex will bring it up on a Saturday morning. If we don't have to get up early and go and watch sports for the kids,
Sure.
then I get to have my cup of tea in bed. And so it generally comes in the enormous pint of tea. So we, pint of beer, pint of tea. That's just how we roll in the UK.
So what I'm hearing is that the first thing I need to do when I move there is get me a sportsdirect.com pint mug.
That's it. I got 2. But they are so enormous. So yeah.
I enjoy either too tiny version of something or too big version of something. So this makes me very happy.
This is big.
It's funny that you're offering a giant mug because today I'm about to show the smallest. Well, I guess not because I have had the Japanese teacup, but in terms of a mug, the smallest one I've drank out of. This is a mug that also exists in this house that I live in. Remember, I said when I had the friendship mug, I said there was like one that's a set of like 8 that are just in the house. I have not drank out of these at all, but I decided to pull it out today. It's this little.
Oh, it's a cute pottery one.
So cute little. But it's a set of 8. It's very tiny. I've been like actively trying not to drink so much out of it. So I actually had tea in it by the time Mug Chat popped up. It doesn't have any marking on it, so I don't know what it is, but I assume it's just like a local style.
This is good. So, oh, we should have done it like a cheers.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
We should do that more often.
Now we figured out the direction.
Now we know the direction.
Okay, so tea big and small
tea big and small today. Tea if by big ass mug or chai if by teeny ass mug. That's what I have today. I have a chai in there.
So if you order it online, it's massive. If you get it in Mexico, it's teeny.
It's teeny, yeah. So funny. I love it.
Shall we?
Are you ready to tell your tale?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Shall I be mother? I shall. I should start this segment by saying Shumai and Croeso because I am taking you to Wales. So I'll give you a little bit of Welsh. So we're going to Cymru. And so when this episode airs, if we have done our calendar sums correctly, which then it will be the 1st of March, which is St. David's Day. And St. David is the patron saint of Wales. So happy St. David's Day, or as we would say in Welsh, I always get this funny mixed up in my mouth when I try and do my Welsh. So Dydd Gwyl Dewi Hapus, which is what we would say happy St. David's Day in Welsh.
Okay.
So, grab a leek, grab a daffodil, settle in. We're going back in time. So if you've got the leek, you can have a snack. Oh, we did a thumbs up.
There we
It
go.
likes
Thumbs up
whales.
again. It likes whales. The computer filter, whatever it is, likes whales. That's good.
So last time I took you to Wales, I didn't do my Welsh accent. Today I'm bringing you Welsh language. So hopefully I'm making up for that.
Excellent.
And so if there are any Welsh listeners, feel free to correct my pronunciation. It's been a while.
I feel like I haven't lived there in ages.
So we are going back to 1878. Right. So it's another one. Back in the day, and we're going to a very small village because there are lots of those in Wales, and this one is called Llangybi, which again is my best pronunciation of that. So quick geography lesson again. We are in the south of Wales. You've got Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales, and then a little way around you've got Newport, and then there's a road that goes from Newport to a place called Usk, which used to be a bigger, more important kind of town. It's still big, but it's not like a big city like Newport or Cardiff. And in between, on that long road between Newport and Usk, you've got this little village, Llangybi. And in this small village lives William Watkins, and he's a farmer. And he lives in a small cottage with his wife Elizabeth and their 3 youngest children. They've got 4 older children who are all like married, grown up, have their own house, live outside of the family home. So we've got Charlotte, Alice, and Frederick, who are 9, 5, and 4. And unfortunately, this story the title will give it away because this story is the Llangybi Massacre.
Okay.
So that tells you what might be about to happen to our family. One fine morning, so we've our dad, William Watkins. William is a farmer, and he's got a local lad who is a farmhand and does labouring work with him and helps him out. And he's an 11-year-old boy from the local village. And so he makes his way to their house one morning because he's, going to go to work with the dad, William. When he opens the front gate of the cottage, he first of all sees Mrs. Watkins, Elizabeth, lying in the garden in a pool of congealed blood.
Ooh, congealed. It's had some time.
Yeah. So at this point, he legs it because he was terrified, and he ran back to his house to tell his mum what he'd found. And she gathered together a group of local men, and they went to see what the fuck was going on. So when they arrive, they take in more of the scene, and we realize that not only is Elizabeth lying there dead, but also William is lying on the front. They're kind of in the front of the house, like on the steps, the doorstep, the path. The house is smoldering. It's been on fire. And so the men managed to bust into the house with some force because the door was blocked or whatever, because things had fallen down. So inside, they made their way upstairs and found the 3 children in bed, murdered. And as the fire had raged inside, some of the floorboards had collapsed, which is what stopped them from being able to open the door. And because they could see right down into the downstairs of the house. And it transpires that the children have been, like, each one of them has got multiple stab wounds. It's like a properly savage, brutal attack. So the discovery has been made. So that's the scene, that's the crime scene, and those are our victims. Meanwhile, in Cardiff, so I've told you that's just a little bit further down and around the coast. A year earlier, a Spanish ship arrives, and it's a Spanish iron ore ship, and it's got a crew, and the crew come onto land to get new supplies and stuff, and then they're going to do their business, and then they'll go back to Spain because they're a trade ship. That's what they do. And while the sailors are on leave, they enjoy, some aspects of the local community, the women and the ale, and, sailors on leave. That's kind of what they do.
Yeah.
And so they're having a good time living it up. And all but one of them make it back onto the ship, and the ship leaves and it goes back to Spain. It's done its business. This one guy gets a bit too caught up in the sailor on leave mentality and finds himself arrested for attempted burglary. And so his whole crew has left without him. He gets arrested. He's in the jail for a bit. and he is released. And it's a bit murky whether he was fully charged or whether there wasn't really enough evidence. But either way, he manages to, he is at some point let out of the jail. And when he's let out of jail, he makes his way to Newport. And at this time, he's being escorted by not really police officers, but people who've been ordered by the police to escort him on the train so that he can be deported back to Spain. The next ship that comes in, they're going to, send him off and send him back home. He manages to give them the slip while he's on this journey, and he finds himself in the countryside, and at this point, he doesn't have a job. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have any means to support himself. He barely speaks English. So he's just kind of making his way best he can. Mm-hmm. And so now if we come back to our story, the day before the murders take place, our young Spanish sailor finds himself in the local area of this place. And his name is Yusaf Garcia, but in different publications, he was given slightly different names. So he was called Joseph sometimes, which would be the anglicized version. Mm-hmm. And I think in one place he was called Salvatore Joseph Garcia. And so, there's obviously different versions of his name. But I think officially it's Yusuf.
My father-in-law's name is Yusuf, and people call him Joe, and I think it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Oh, there you go then. Okay. So yeah, I mean, obviously the Moors were in Spain for a long time, so you have a name like Yusuf. That makes sense. So he sets out on foot, trying to find shelter and whatever, and he's trying to find his way back to a train station. Is apparently what he's up to. He is described, the quote says he was a short, thin man, just 5'5" tall, with a swarthy complexion, coarse black hair and beard. Because of course he was swarthy.
Because he was swarthy. Dusty, swarthy.
Exactly. This is what you get. So you can see why I was interested in this story, right? Because
a couple of dusty, swarthy babes talking about murder.
Exactly. So a local lady reports that he knocked on her door. So she lives in Llangybi in the village, and around 7 o'clock in the morning, the day before the murders took place, he knocks on her door, asks for a drink of water and directions back to Newport. And so she obliged and sent him on his way. And the route that she suggested would have taken him right past the Watkins cottage, because that was the way, because it's on this quite big main, right near the main road. Which obviously wouldn't have been like a highway or anything, because we're still, back in the day. But it's as main as a road gets in these days. So basically, this massacre was done. The house was in disarray because there had been the fire. And we've got reports of a swarthy foreigner, wandering around the countryside. And because there aren't too many of those guys around, everybody's realized who this guy is. The police have put 2 and 2 together, the guy who slipped our clutches. And so a very detailed description gets, put about the place everywhere. And so they're on the hunt for poor Mr. Garcia. So to go back to the cottage and the victims, it's said that that William Watkins, his face was actually covered with sweet William flowers, which we can put a picture of those. It's just a local type of flower, which I thought was a really interesting aspect. And I couldn't really find any more information on it. And I'm a bit annoyed about that, because it felt really pointed. And I really wanted to know why somebody had covered his face with flowers, like purposefully. So that was a really interesting thing, but I'll come back to that at the end. They were saying that terribly thick smoke was pouring out of the house. So it sounds like there's been a really terrible fire. So Garcia is the chief suspect, and they circulate the description. Everyone's going after him. A report comes in of a scruffy looking man who's arrived in the middle of the night in Newport, and he doesn't speak English, and he's asking people for directions. He was told that the next train from Newport to Cardiff isn't until like 2:30 in the morning. The local sergeant hears of this, and obviously they pick him up because they recognize the name and the face and everything from the burglary that he may or may not have done previously. So now he finds himself handcuffed and back in a police cell. It was reported by the Press Association at the time. Some local reporter sent a telegram to London with the details that this guy had been arrested. This was his description, and this is what was in his possession at the time of his arrest. He had a large clasp knife, so that's like a folding knife, several items of female clothing,
like you do.
A mantle clock, or just the mechanism of the clock, because there are two different things there, and a loaf of bread. This is what he had on him when he was checked in to the police. So the legal proceedings all happened kind of quickly. And back in the day, there was a slightly, what might seem like a slightly confusing order to the way things worked. But it goes kind of like this. I hope we can make it make sense. He was taken before a magistrate initially, and the charges were read, and he was officially charged. So that was one kind of hearing that he had. And he was booed and hissed, and the people hated him because this crime had, struck such a chord in the community. People were traumatized by the level of brutality in this crime, and so straight away they hate him, and they are just literally baying for blood. It's become so popular, it's so widely reported in the media, that people are coming from a long way away to come and see the house and everything. And this really reminded me of way back when we talked about Julia Webster, when she had been killed, and people came and took things from her house, like from the garden and stuff like that. So people are doing that again. They're taking like bits of rubble and brick and stuff just as souvenirs that they've been there, which is just a weird sort of societal happening at the time, obviously. So the next thing that happened was the coroner's court had an inquest, and this was held at a local inn. So there's a jury, and then there's the coroner, and the jury was taken to the home, to the cottage, to see the scene and kind of understand how the bodies were found and everything. And then the local doctor was detailing the injuries that were sustained by each member of the family. William, the father, had a smash in the back of his head, which suggested that he had been smashed over the head and stunned before he was then killed, because that isn't what killed him. Both the mother and the father, Elizabeth and William, had their throats slit, and that's how they had died. And the quote was, "They had their throats slashed by a formidable blade." I know you like these quotes.
I do.
So the same weapon was then used in what was described as a frenzied attack on the three children. And one of the girls, all her stab wounds were in her back. And so there was some suggestion that perhaps she had gone to raise an alarm, and then, he came behind her. The knife that Garcia had was determined to be way too small to actually have committed these murders. It was blunt. It was a pocket knife. It wouldn't have done what was done. So they excused that away by saying that he probably that's why he hit him over the head first to stun him, and then he went in the kitchen and grabbed probably a big kitchen knife. Although, there isn't a weapon, there isn't a knife, we haven't got that weapon. So this is really, there's a lot of supposition and a lot of leaps being taken, really. In a surprise to nobody, the inquest returned a verdict of willful murder.
Of course.
Because that's as far as it went. And he was then committed to stand trial in front of Gloucester Assizes. So Assizes Court was a thing where, because the High Court and the Crown Court, all those proceedings took place in London. Now, obviously, London was very far away from all of the rest of the land that it was controlling with its laws. So what they would do is, from time to time, they would travel around, like the representatives and the judges would travel around to different local places and hold, we're going to do the Gloucester Assizes. So all the cases from this area will be heard on this day. So you can have your trial booked in for this day. And it would be kind of like maybe county by county, or sometimes smaller counties would group together and have one. Now, the reason this was actually in Gloucester, which is in England and not Wales, was basically because they didn't think you would get a fair trial in Wales, because everybody hated him, and there was so much bias, which is interesting because we've just been talking about media bias, and you know,
with a foreigner
about it. And it's the same thing back then. So I mean, basically since the 12th century, the assizes system has been in place in one form or another, but it was stopped in about 1971 or 2. So that's what was going on there. So the trial began on the 30th of October 1878, and the defense claims that Garcia just found the house and the family in that state, and although he did steal a loaf of bread and a clock and a couple of things, he didn't kill them. He was just an opportunistic guy who needed something to eat because he's been on the lam, and you know.
But did he do that before or after the fire?
Well, so this is what we're not really sure. But he says, you know, the defense said he didn't do this crime. He's guilty of stealing some things after the crime had already been committed. Mary Ann Watkins, who is one of the older daughters, who I said was married and lived outside of the family house. So she testified that the women's clothing that he was found to have about his person belonged to her mother. And so did the clock, belonged to the house. And also, the loaf of bread had this really specific notch in the side of the loaf of bread. There was like a dent in it because the family loaf tin, which her mother would always bake their loaves in, had a dent in it. So you could tell this bread came from this loaf tin, therefore it was their bread. So that's what she said. There was no real effort at all made to investigate any other possibilities. Or look.
Did they even like go and look for the pan even to see?
No,
like,
they were just like, that's your bread. Okay, that's, you know, that's what it is. At this, it was just so shocking that someone would murder an entire family for so little. That's kind of, they were like, well, why would you kill an entire family for a loaf of bread?
That's just so brutally.
Yeah. And that's why the defense were like, well, you wouldn't, would you? Because that's nonsense. Because whoever killed them set the fire to obviously cover up the evidence or disguise whatever had gone on there, in an attempt to, you know, be a distraction from the murders. But anyway, he was saying, why would you kill an entire family just for that little thing? Anyway, there were no eyewitnesses, was another thing they said in his defense. Nobody saw him do it. Nobody even saw him near that house. You know, just because that lady said that she told him to kind of go in that direction, that still doesn't mean that he went and did this. And also, truly, he had no motive to commit these crimes. He didn't know these people. Anyway, apparently the jury, when they were hearing the case, they didn't even leave the jury box. They just had like a few minutes of quick discussion and returned a guilty verdict.
God damn.
They didn't even leave the room. They were just like, you think you, yeah, me
we
too.
got this, Judge.
Yeah, exactly. Done and dusted. So Garcia was sentenced to death and executed at Usk prison on the 18th of November, 1978. So that's, you know, his trial started on the 30th of October. And by the 18th of November, he was dead. The executioner was literally celebrated. Like, people were buying him drinks in the pub. When he left town on the train, because they brought in a special guy, when he left town, people were cheering and waving flags. And
it's so wild to think that there's like a job like that people, it's so wild.
So that was what happened. And in 2013, there was actually a BBC Wales TV series called Crime Solver, in which modern day police investigate, like reopen like old cases and see if they would do things differently. Yeah. And so I haven't actually been able to see it, but the police detective who worked on that said that what's really interesting about cases specifically from this time is that the court records are extensive. Like, you can read every word that everybody said. You know, they didn't have like a little stenographer, but, you know, the record of what happened is really, really detailed. So he was able to comb through all this and just be like, there's no evidence, because they didn't investigate it properly. There was no real evidence. Like, it just so happened that a foreign guy
foreigner,
in a, you know, just happened to be, okay, maybe he was a petty thief. And, you know, maybe he wasn't a great guy, but that doesn't necessarily mean he brutally murdered an entire family.
Sounds like an open and shut case to me, Johnson.
Yeah. So, and that's how it went down, obviously. And I've got loads of images, which you'll appreciate, because they come from a penny dreadful of the time, which was basically, it was called the Illustrated Police News. And at this time, it was the most widely distributed publication of its type. So it was basically an early form of tabloid media. And the pictures are graphic and wild drawings of crazy speculation of what the crime scene looked like, and like visual representations of him murdering them all. And it's like, well, you don't even know that he did. So that, but obviously that was what was circulating at the time, and people were literally whipped up into a frenzy against this foreigner. And that ends the story. There is a gravestone where the whole family was laid to rest. It is so highly likely that he did not commit these crimes, and therefore nobody has ever found out who did, and obviously I don't think ever will now. So but a shocking massacre of an entire family in a sleepy village.
I immediately go to like, somebody had a neighboring farm and wanted the land, or
there's got to be a feud of some kind, right?
Of some sort. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think of, because it seems so, like, I can understand a foreign person traveling and killing people on the road. There's actually like a railway killer in the US that was from Mexico that used to cross the border and kill people and stuff like that. So like, I get that that's a thing, but it always surprises me when it's like an insanely brutal killing of someone that you're just strangers to. Like, what?
And also, if you're just one person, like you've had to overpower 2 adults and kill 3 children and set the whole place ablaze with no one seeing you. Like,
that's a lot happening.
Quite ambitious. And
if
still
it's
make
congealed
alive
too,
with the clothing, the clock, and the bread.
With that not being soaked in blood or burnt or smelling of smoke or anything like that. I had enough time to take a clock and or dismantle
because I may just have the workings.
Rifle through the closet to get mom's clothes, which again, why, I don't know.
There was another report that he was wearing 2 pairs of trousers, which I liked, and that there was one report that said he had bloodstains on his shirt, but there was also a report that sort of contradicted that could be from the victims, because he had just been released from the jail, and it was suggested it was something to do with the chains there, and actually it wasn't like he and also, if you've stabbed that many people that much, that's not just a few blood drops, right? And there wasn't even like bloody clothing found, just like, because say he'd gone in the house and gone, oh, I'm covered, okay, I'll take this off,
I'll take this off.
There wasn't like a shirt found there,
and he probably didn't have like 5 or 6 outfits hanging around so that he could discard one and cover it up and things
he
like
didn't
that,
have any other things with him.
Kind of like when we didn't know enough about Mrs. Ishida in the Sada Abe case. I'm piecing together a story in my head about Kaur Garcia, where it's just like, he's actually a cross-dresser.
Oh yeah.
But he was like ostracized in Spain, so he thought he'd test out Wells for a bit and see if he can like live his life that way. But then he's just met with like, hey, foreigner, you're going to jail constantly and stuff like that. So he's just like, I don't know what else to do.
I mean, it said that even in his trial, he was like, they quoted it as "me no jail," which I feel is that kind of, apparently that's what he said, "me no jail," and that's the only thing he kept repeating.
Okay, I can hear like, please don't put me in that place anymore. Well, because he probably had a pretty brutal treatment of it. Besides the fact that I'm making the assumption that a lot of jail and prison time is fairly brutal. But in a place where you are a foreigner, and suspected of something so brutal as, because I think it's the fact that it's an entire family. That's such a huge crime. You've laid waste to an entire bloodline type of thing. You would have a rough go,
I mean, and so he'd been in the jail already just for possibly doing an attempted burglary. He didn't even manage to steal whatever it was, and that's because he found himself abandoned by his ship's crew because he overstayed his time on leave and didn't make it back, and the ship left without him. And so goodness only knows what his real backstory is and who was waiting for him back in Spain, to come home.
I would love to know the Spain side of his story as well. Like, who was he? Did anybody ever go and trace that?
that he's that he's described as swarthy, and obviously at this time even a Spanish guy with dark hair is getting described as swarthy, but his name is Yusuf, and perhaps he is of Moorish descent, and therefore, like an Arab. And so there may be more, that might have been more
there could be religious stuff going on, and
because he would seem, even more foreign if his skin were much darker like that.
Or if his attire was in any way related to something that seemed religious but not Christian or Catholic or something like that. Because I assume Catholicism was probably the big thing at the time.
And Quakers were a big deal in Wales at that
Quakers
time
and stuff like that.
But definitely a lot of Catholicism, and in fact, there is a big church nearby that I think there's some history and stories on that I came across. But yeah, and so that that is the story, which again is one of these ones that is a truly shocking crime, and
no answer,
no real satisfaction, and all because they just pinned it on the foreign dude.
I wonder how many things in history is like this, where it's just like, they pin it on a foreigner, or they pin it on somebody who was just unlucky, or someone that people didn't like particularly, or whatever, and literally the real person lives a full life after, presumably, or maybe they get grabbed for something else that they've done in the past or whatever, or in the future. And I mean, it does just feel like an unlucky foreigner.
Because he didn't have the knife that he did have, couldn't possibly have done this. They didn't even look for the blimmin' other knife that did do it. And we've talked before about how, stabbing is such a brutal crime, and
it's so personal.
It's you have to be up close to do it, and to do it repeatedly on one person, and then do that, replicate that 5 times. I mean,
and it's
children
like heavy work, right? Like, it can't be easy. I mean, I'm just thinking about like my closest experience to would be like literally cutting a steak or something like that while I'm cooking or something, right? And how difficult that can be. And you're sitting there like cutting into meat over and over again, attached to a person who's probably being like, "Please don't do this to me." Stop.
Could you not?
Maybe they're fighting back too, and you're having to do this multiple times. I mean, I have so many questions about how one person would have been able to do this at all. With 5 people.
Because I did suspect, shouldn't this have taken more than one person to carry out this crime? Because you've had to smack over the head the man of the household to take him out, and then you've slashed the throats of the adults. Which, presumably she was fighting to stop you from, murdering her husband. So it just doesn't. And
even with the children, like maybe they're asleep, and so they get maybe awakened up by hearing tumbling or something like that downstairs or whatever, however it was, and then by the time they get up to the children's rooms or whatever. It can't be easy to wrangle 3 kids,
No, exactly.
Like even an adult one, or an older one or something like that. That can't be easy. So it seems like something you would have to be able to do.
And kids make a lot of noise.
People. Yeah, they make a lot of noise, right? So either you're able to do it by subduing, meaning you have extra people around. Because I can't imagine it was a very silent crime to be occurring. It seems so like it does.
And then you
seem
set
like
the fire afterwards as well. Like you've got to have, materials or whatever to set the fire. And by all account, it must have been blazing for a long time for the, for the floorboards to fall through and stuff, and then block the door and for all that smoke. But yet the house didn't completely burn down, obviously because it's a big stone cottage.
Fair.
But so inside is burning, and that's why I think all the smoke is coming out. But it wasn't actually fully destroyed. In actual fact, the house was then torn down, because
Yeah.
no one wanted to live there because everybody thought it was haunted, obviously.
Good old
Of
haunting,
course.
man.
Goes without saying.
Like,
You don't even need a
honestly,
massacre to take place for us to decide it's haunted.
this is one of those little side rabbit holes that I've gone down before, is looking at like the type of people that buy murder homes, because you can knock off like sometimes up to 25% off of a sale price because of it having major crime and stuff like that. And so I read a couple interviews of people who had bought murder homes, and like most of the people who had commented said it's like it wasn't because it was a murder home, it was because of the fucking discount. But like on the flip of it, whether or not they regretted buying it usually had to do with like fans of crime and people like knocking on the door to be like, is this the such and such murder house and stuff like that, and how you didn't have it in you to allow people to tour your home. It could just be this like daunting thing of just like, I fucking live in this house and people are obsessed with it or blah, blah, blah. And then you got the people who like do believe in haunting and they're just like, I got scratched, or, my keys went missing or something like that. And then there was one guy who, and I wish I remember what house this is, but it's somewhere in like Los Feliz, which is a suburb of Los Angeles. And it was like this, multi-million dollar home or whatever. And it was like, yeah, it was a lot of fun and things like that, we got the discount, we did it up or whatever. It's like, but then after a while, you just sit there and be like, something really terrible happened here.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of move on. And like, I feel like I could move into a murder home relatively fine, because I don't believe in hauntings or anything like that. But because I'm a true crime person, I would end up doing something about it. Like I would, you
wouldn't just let that be. Yeah.
Right. Like, I might do a documentary about it, or, I might try to learn about it or something like that. And, I don't know that I would necessarily let people tour my home or anything like that, because I'm not, I don't really enjoy company. But, like I can foresee being able to live a life in a house where something like that happened.
Yeah.
And then, and just be kind of fine. But I imagine it would take tolls on some people if they felt like there was something lingering, which I am not a person that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it would depend on the crime. I'm going to need to know some deets before I
need some details. I also need to know how long ago it happened, so I don't have to worry about like somebody coming back. Because like in LA, there's a lot of murder homes that are like drug-related murder homes. I'm not buying a drug-related murder home because I don't know that there won't be someone who comes back because they might perceive that there's something in that house or whatever. I don't want that heat. Exactly. But if you tell me that I bought a house that in 1938, somebody came, then I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine. No problem. The people who bought Nicole Brown Simpson's home in Brentwood, which I've driven past several times because of like, naturally it's off a main road, so you're gonna drive past it. They ended up like reconfiguring the fencing, like the wall around the house, so that you couldn't actually look at the house anymore because they were so frustrated at how many people would show up and looking at the house or whatever. Smart move, so that you can try to have enough. That being said, I don't think I would cross that threshold every day and not be thinking about how many pictures I saw of Nicole and Ron on that pathway, right?
Yeah.
That one, because I think it's too soon, too close together. I was alive for it. I've seen these pictures splash for ages. Like, I think that one would be tougher. Whereas,
because that's enormous. Like, that's worldwide. Everybody knows that.
Everybody saw that one, right?
Yeah.
And even like the Menendez brothers, which essentially the same time period or whatever. It is a mansion, so I'm probably not going to be able to afford it anytime soon. I have driven past it, but
depends on the discount, right?
Generally discount. But I can imagine living in that house and not really thinking about it, even though I saw some photos and I understand that it was fairly brutal and stuff like that. I think I would be more haunted by the fact that there was so much sexual assault of children in that
that's
house.
What I'm saying. Yeah, that's the details that I want to know.
Right?
Yeah.
So like it's curious, like. I wonder if there's just the type of buyer that would be like, first of all, before we go into this, do you have any murder houses on the list? Let's start there, or if it's like you just stumble into something and then, it gets disclosed and you have a big decision to make. And like you, I'm like, give me the details, because if it's too modern of a crime, I don't think I want that heat.
Yeah.
But if it's an older one, shit happens in a house, like I don't know how many places I've lived. I lived in a house that was built in 1871 when I lived in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think somebody didn't die in that
Yeah,
house
yeah,
at some
exactly.
point.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm
that's
saying?
the thing, right? Yeah,
It could be childbirth. It could be
Yeah.
whatever. Like, it was an old fucking
Yeah.
house, and it felt like an old house, even with
Yeah.
some of the updates that it had, which weren't many.
Mm.
I just assumed. I don't know why, but I just made the assumption. Yeah, at some point, someone
Yeah.
died of
that
child.
sounds fair.
Like, I don't know. Again, very specific. In my head, I was like, somebody died of childbirth in this house, because the age of the house made me feel like medical care
Or
wasn't.
were you picking up on the vibes?
Maybe it was the vibes. My mom, who
Huh?
is a spiritual bae, she told me before I even moved into the house that a ghost named Agnes lived in that house, came to her to tell her warnings
Heavily
about.
specific.
Very
Okay.
specific. And Agnes was the woman of that house and didn't like other women trying to manage her home. And so Agnes was going to be fucking with me, things like moving my keys around or this or that or whatever. But she was going to love Tristan because,
So sorry,
very
not
specific.
to go deep on analyzing your mother and her telling you this story. I'm wondering if there are some issues that she's carrying out by saying you're going to have the
Absolutely.
problem being the woman, but
Yeah.
Tristan's going to be fine because
Tristan's going to be fine.
good
Yeah.
guy.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Absolutely. That was going to be a thing.
Mhm.
Agnes never once moved my keys around. I never lost my keys in that house. Nothing weird ever happened in that house. I did try to look up the house just to try to find, who owned it previous and everything like that or whatever. I wasn't really able to find anything specific.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing that my mom did was she Google Earthed my address in my neighborhood, and she's like, there's a cemetery right by your house, and in that cemetery there's somebody buried there named Agnes. And I was like, okay, first of all, this is New England, this is Massachusetts, one of the earliest colonies of what became the US. There's literally cemeteries on every other corner. You can't throw a stone without hitting a cemetery in that area. It's going to be that thing. The gravestones that are hella old are laced in between the more modern gravestones. Like, we walked through that grave because it's a very nice cemetery. It was also an easier path to walk through it than to walk around it. So you just did that. So you were probably going to see a handful of Agneses. The fucking house was built in 1871. It was going to be an Agnes, And so, but there was things that Tristan and I would do. Is like, the cats would knock something over, or the power would go out, and Tristan and I would be like, fucking Agnes again, like whatever.
Amazing.
And so my mom came to visit me, and she heard us do that, and she did not like that we made that joke because she didn't like us taunting Agnes.
So I love it. It wasn't just because don't take the piss out of me for saying this. It was don't taunt.
It was like literally like she bought in, right? Like, she created this story and bought into it so hard. She's just like, don't piss off Agnes. Even made a short film in the very creepy basement that we had in that house, which was unfinished and earthen floor and stone walls and shit like that. We made a murder short film in that basement, and again taunting the spirits of the people that had lived in that house prior to us. But like, I just assumed someone. I don't know why. I just because of the age of the house, I just assumed someone had died in that house. But I didn't buy it, so I didn't have to be disclosed anything.
Yeah. But you're gonna, you got to be realistic about these things.
I mean, and nowadays my cat is buried in the backyard of that house. So
there you go. Was your cat called Agnes?
I know, right? There was two attached houses, so they were like kind of like this way of each other, kind of a thing. But they were joined by a corner. It's very strange. But the owners that owned both houses, they lived in one and we lived in the other. And their back garden was a mix of like planted things, but it was basically a cat cemetery. It was just like every neighborhood cat, every cat that they had owned. Wow. And so when our cat died, we were like, could we bury, ruin in the back? And they're like, yeah, just pick a spot.
And then you start to dig, and they're like, no,
nope, that's Agnes. Leave Agnes alone.
Oh gosh. So it is really sad to think that this sort of crime, I mean, and this must have happened all the time. I get that there weren't
Must have,
going to be too used to foreigners rocking up, and so people are always wary of what they don't understand, right?
Yeah.
The ignorance will always prevail. But I thought that it definitely felt like a miscarriage of justice. So
Yeah.
it seemed like a good one for us. But literally, I mean, like I said, I can find all these pictures and, artists' impressions and all that, which is great. And there are drawings of him, but there's no evidence. So it's like you put so much effort into reporting this and everything, and yet you didn't really do the one job that you had, which was investigate the freaking crime.
The amount of these older crimes that do have very specific court documents, like even Lavinia's story was like that too. Just extensive court documents. And yet, like, in the end, they're convicted of entirely circumstantial and like barely hanging on by a thread circumstantial evidence, right? And then their conviction doesn't actually match what they were charged with. Like, it's the whole thing is so crazy. And this, poor guy was. Yeah, I mean, again, an example of just because you did something bad doesn't mean you would do the other thing bad.
Right. Yeah.
Because going back again to Tilly, one of the things I don't think I said, but it's part of her story, is she hated that people thought she was like what she viewed as a lower level person. She said something to the effect of like, I ain't still nothing. I ain't, like whatever it was all these crimes that had nothing to do with murder. So she wanted you to know, like, I wasn't lazy. I didn't steal nothing.
Oh yeah.
I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And people are like, but we're talking to you about murder. And she's like, it's not my, that you don't have to worry about that. But I ain't a thief. Like it was like clearly she viewed someone who would steal as worse. Like, don't convict me of murder. I'm not a thief. Well, bitch, this ain't got nothing to do with nothing. But that's what she felt was important to say. And like in this case, he might have been a little petty thief. I'd be surprised if it was much more than that. Or it could just be like, you're a foreigner whose ship left. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. You try to break into some place.
You needed food. You needed shelter,
right?
Exactly.
He might not have been a regular thief. He might have just been like a circumstantial.
Well, because it struck me as well. Okay, he knocks on this woman's door, 7 a.m. Can I have a drink of water and how do I get to the station, please? He just asked her for directions and he didn't kill her or bash her stone or slit her throat or steal her bread or her clothes, he didn't take her underwear, nothing.
Because what could have triggered, like, if he's the one who did knock on their door, and it's just like, what do they call him? Like, dirty foreigner, and he's just like, I'm gonna kill you all. Step.
That's it.
Like,
exactly.
What is the thing that would motivate you to kill an entire family if you don't have beef with them?
Yeah, if that's all he needed was the bread and the clothes and whatever, we know that he has got form for having knocked on a stranger's door, taken what he, asked for what he wanted nicely, and left the poor woman alone.
And how much easier would it have been to kill one lady who gave you water than a whole fucking family?
Yeah, exactly. So that obviously there's a lot that doesn't add up, and I think we can safely say that this was probably an extreme miscarriage of justice.
Yeah, I would like to know if the lady who gave him water also gave him a loaf of bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean a whole loaf of bread is probably a pretty big offer.
Yeah.
At the time,
Yeah. I don't think you'd just be handing that out. And I guess that's why they're saying he did steal the bread. Yeah. So
maybe. Or maybe a lonely farm wife saw a nice swarthy gentleman.
Well,
gave him bread and gave him pan and a little pan, and him on his way.
I don't mean to speak ill of Elizabeth Watkins, but you never know. Maybe
you never know.
Maybe she took a shine to him, or he took a shine to her.
Never seen someone with such a tan before,
So who knows? But yeah, that that here endeth the tale, and we'll never know the truth.
those are those moments where you wish you could just like type into a little machine and be like
Yeah.
video footage of something.
Let me check the CCTV one sec.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
are there any satellites that go that far back in time? No. Yeah.
So that's sad. So I will end the story by saying Pob Hoel, which is goodbye in Welsh. So that was the end of that tale. Goodbye, Wales. Until the next time.
That's fun. Thanks you for sharing that. I'm enjoying getting more information on Wales because it's such a I guess like categorically it's a bigger part of my ethnicity, and yet it's something I know so little about because because just in one generation my family became English, which is wild. But I I like getting these little doses, even though they're murder doses for the most part.
I've got another one that will come up soon, I'm sure, which is a more modern one. Well, it's definitely more modern. Sorry. Okay. But I thought that this one really stuck out at me especially because we were talking about the Peterson thing, and I was thinking about the trial by media and you can be a scumbag, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're a murderer,
right? And
so this really this is why this one I said, okay, I'm going to do this one because it really stuck out at me for those reasons.
I am intrigued by just because you're a dick doesn't mean you did the crime type of
exactly
thing, because our willingness to decide that you're bad and therefore is so crazy, right? I mean, there's plenty of people that I don't like in this world that I wouldn't try to convict of murder just because they've irritated me or something like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
Or that my humanity doesn't extend to them anymore just because they're assholes or whatever. Like I will say, I do cut off empathy with people who fuck with me at some point, and I'm just like, live or die, I don't care.
Yeah.
But actively be comfortable with being like, they're just a dick, but let's go ahead and get them for murder. That's wild to me.
Oh yeah. I just and I think because these judgments that people make, oh, he's foreign or he doesn't speak English, or in this case, I just think, but at what point do you go, okay, but I mean, I know we don't like foreign round here and stuff, but like we can't just say he did something he didn't do. We can't do that, right? What because we're gonna kill him now. That's the thing. We're gonna hang him. So you just, I mean, I understand ignorance and I understand hatred of foreigners. Obviously I disagree with that, but if that's your mindset, right? If that's your mindset, and I'm trying to get into it and understand
you
where
get
you're
that
coming
it exists
from,
and stuff.
But I don't also get why you're like, oh yeah, fuck it, just kill him then.
Fine. Just go ahead and kill him for it.
Because also then what you're not doing is solving the crime, and what you're not doing is figuring out the puzzle and having actual justice done for the crime that has shocked you. If you're so upset that this violent crime could happen in your village, well, if you don't catch the killer, who's to say it's not going to happen
again, right? Because to me, laying waste to an entire family does tell me there's a bigger story, a rivalry or something there. But that being said, it could just be a crazy person or group of people who just like to see the world burn and they'd like to lay waste to an entire family. That's also possible. So especially if it's that version of it, right? Who's next? It can happen. It could happen to anybody, right? It's so crazy that is like that. We're just comfortable with the idea of it. And when you watch some of these or listen to some of these podcasts or watch some of these documentaries, you almost always hear a person say, well, if they got arrested, they had to have done something. And even if there's nothing provable or anything like that, this trust that like we got the right guy, so we don't really need to worry about proving it too much because they, one, it's a combination of like the world is not that unjust, mentality that a lot of people have. Where it's like there's no way you would be arrested for something that you didn't do.
Oh yeah, like there's no smoke without fire kind of thing.
Right, or that if you didn't do this one, you probably did another one, so at least we're just getting you.
Oh sure, okay,
people
great.
Are so comfortable with that idea.
I hope it never happens to your son, or like in that case, or like for God, that's just ridiculous. Like,
and that's why like the Innocence Project is such a huge deal to me because when when you see what is done to these men, mostly
Yeah.
men, because those are the
Yeah.
ones that
Yeah.
are more publicized, but when you see what's done to these men to make them as desperate as possible by the time that they get convicted, and then they spend their 30 or some odd years in prison, and they're exonerated very easily through DNA or something like that, right? When they talk about like how they were ripped apart, how they were dehumanized, and how they were basically made to be the thing, that there are still people that, even though finding out this isn't actually the guy that did it, that will say, well, he had to have done something.
It's madness to me, utter madness, because but I mean, I've said before, I have a problem with the whole prison system, and the way that's the way we deal with
Same.
things anyway. But
Yeah.
but the fact that people can be so callous and so cold, I think, and this is right. This is because it's usually a dehumanization, and it's more often than not based on race as well, of course, and that's going to be a big factor, isn't it? Because they're like, wow, probably doing some crimes of some kind, because you just just having this ability and this privilege to sit there and just be like, one of them or whatever.
Until
It's
it
just
happens to
absolutely
you,
madness.
like, what if
Exactly.
you're the next guy that someone else is going to say, well, you probably have done something. And, you could be someone like Scott Peterson, who, in my opinion, based off of all the stuff that I've read and watched over the years, he's just a dick that cheated on his wife.
Yeah.
And then got convicted of murdering her. I don't like, there's just not enough evidence to support he murdered her, but there is enough evidence to support he was a piece of shit as a person. That's it. Like, you don't need to go to jail because you cheated on your partner.
But then, and then if you think about, somebody did do that to her, right? And if you then think, okay, well, where is that person now? And then you look at if you go backwards into the history of serial killers or something, once they've been caught, and they try and retrace and figure out all the ones they did before, or even the ones that they didn't kill, or the ones that went wrong, or the ones where they tried some stuff out just to see how it felt, so there was a bit of maiming or a bit of assault or something before they escalated to their full, like, what they were going to keep repeating. Who's to say that these, like, in this example, Lacey isn't the beginning of that, or she's number 4, and then there's someone who's gone on and done 5 more, because I just think it's bonkers to assume that well, fine, we've probably got the right guy, we probably won't look too much further because that just seems a bit inconvenient and like hard work to us, like, you've got to be damn sure, especially when you're going to put someone on death row or have their life on the line.
Absolutely.
I mean, because obviously, we don't do that anymore, but you shouldn't incarcerate someone for their entire life if they didn't do it. Make sure you know what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. It's
Anyway.
wild. I could go on forever about it. Forever. It's just like, it's such a weird passion to have developed, but just like, I want to understand why this happens and how we can stop it.
So I think if we delve into the mind, today, I think we would find, he doesn't have the mind for that kind of killing because he didn't do that kind of killing. So we need to look elsewhere who did. And
I'm curious about how many murderers you create. You could potentially be creating something like that, but anyways, that is for another day.
So we're back. Season 2 is off with a bang, and next week it'll be you will share a story.
Yes.
So during these next few episodes, you're going to be in and out of transit and things when we're recording, aren't you? So we will be, that's why we took a little break, to give us some grace, because we're still recording, you weren't listening to us, and so to make sure that we keep popping up every week for you.
I think it'll be like 3 or 4 episodes into this season before I'm actually fully on one side, on the opposite side of the border than I'm on at the moment. But so I do have a couple of back and forths from the US.
So I'm going to have to figure out a new time zone. Oh my gosh. I'm the worst with the time zones.
Similarly to this time zone, it doesn't change time.
Oh, okay.
But I do think it's an hour earlier than I currently am. Okay. So if we leave you alone, I just go in an hour earlier.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well,
Until
that's something we can
summer
figure out.
flips things, and then maybe,
Yeah.
we'll see.
We
We'll
can
figure it out.
as we go. But just so you know, we're still transatlantic. We're just going to
We're
be a
still
little bit differently
transatlantic.
positioned.
I'll just be back
For
in
the
my
time
home
being.
country, which is going to offer its own little stresses, and then making my plan and effort towards wrapping up my affairs in the US and hopefully getting myself to the UK, hopefully by next year. But this could potentially be a process, so we'll see.
And by then, you'll be fully qualified in tea. So
Tea sommelier, and maybe I'll get like some big tea sommelier job in the UK and get my ass there earlier or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I don't know. I know that it's at least a couple months of a process to get just to the first tier of it, but yeah.
Sorry. Don't make that joke on day one. They'll all think you're too nerdy. You're the uncle.
But for everybody else, don't forget to follow us on the social medias, the Tickety Talks, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, and of course, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/matcha, masala, and murder. You can read about a little bit more of the stories that we share here, as well as buying us a cup of tea. You could buy each of us a cup of tea. You could buy just one cup of tea and we'll split it in half.
It might go a bit cold by the time we transferred it, but
well, hopefully it's in that big sports cup.
Oh, yeah.
And then you and I will have at least, a decent amount of tea each to share. And then, so we will be back for International Women's Day, I think is going to be.
Okay, that's where we're heading next.
Thing. Yeah.
Brilliant.
I have two in mind. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, so I hope you're enjoying these kind of rather tenuous tie-ins that we're doing. Because
we're
like,
just making
Welsh
stretches.
St. David's episode, and it was
it's
like,
just
well,
like,
no, it's not St. David's Day, but it is Welsh.
A crime happened in Wales, and it's St. David's Day.
That's
a
what we're
woman
gonna
killed
do.
somebody. It's International Women's Day. We're
at some
going to make it
point.
work. We are going to make it work. I know last season tended to be accidentally heavily on the widow, the Black Widow type of thing.
Yeah.
Fucking
Women
wild, given
scorned.
that I became a widow in the same season. That like, how did we end up doing so many stories about widows? That kept me up the other night. I was just like, how the fuck? It's just like a weird thought that happened in my head. It was like a weird thing. So hopefully we don't have that kind of power, and whatever we choose to accidentally theme in the future doesn't end up becoming a thing.
Agnes, don't listen. It's all going to be fine.
Don't follow me to Mexico, Agnes. Please leave me alone.
So until next week, everybody stay safe. Don't get got by Agnes. And
don't get got by
catch
Agnes.
you.
And as the motto on the Rough on Rats also say, don't die in the house. I can't fucking believe that's a motto of product.
Which in this story, two of them didn't.
Yeah.
On the lawn. There you go.
On the lawn. Okay.
Bye.
Matcha and Masala is produced and hosted by Sharmane Fury and Rhia Kaur.
This is a ManeHustle Media production in association with Virtual Rhiality Studios. All stories are researched to the best of our ability with information freely available to the public.
This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes, and due to the nature of true life crimes, some information remains inaccessible and new information can come to light after recording.